Voting is underway in most of the U.S., including all the battleground states. Hawaii, the last to open its doors at the polling places. And before the polls opened this morning, around 80 million Americans had already voted and cast early ballots. According to the election lab at the University of Florida, 82 million Americans voted early, just under 45 million voting early in person, and about 38 million voting early by mail. As the election campaign drew to a close last night, the candidates laid out their competing visions for the destiny of America. Trump attacked his critics and vilified migrants as he does, while Kamala Harris laid out a positive vision for America. And it's that energy that I think that is going to really be the deciding force in this campaign. Kamala Harris was in Pennsylvania, the biggest swing state and crucial to the Democratic campaign. It has 19 electoral votes, the most of any swing state, and the pathway to getting 270 electoral votes winning the election is more complicated for the candidate who does not win Pennsylvania. So let's be very clear about which state we need to be watching. But Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, they were crisscrossing the state during the final week of campaigning, and yesterday they held rallies about an hour apart from each other. Kamala Harris was actually knocking on doors herself, and I saw some lovely clips of her ringing doorbells and people hugging her, and that's not something I've seen Donald Trump do, of course. All of his appearances amongst the public are completely staged, and that plays into the narrative that I've been trying to explain, that Trump is not a genuine candidate. There is nothing authentic about his candidacy. Everything is staged. Everything is designed to make him look good. But it's just not real. Harris dedicated the entirety of the final day of the campaign to Pennsylvania. She made 4 stops in the state. Residents there have spoken about wielding the power of a vote that could decide the election. As well as who will become U.S. president, control of Congress is at stake in today's elections that could flip both the House of Representatives and the Senate. The outcome will play an important role in determining how easily the winner of the election will govern until the next congressional elections in 2026. Non-partisan analysts say that Republicans stand a good chance of taking back the Senate, where Democrats hold a 51-49 majority, but Republicans could also lose their grip on the House, where Democrats only need to pick up 4 seats to take back control of the 435-seat chamber. As in the presidential election, the outcome will likely be determined by a small slice of voters. The battle for the Senate hinges on 7 contests, while fewer than 40 House races are seen as truly competitive. And voters don't seem to be indicating a clear preference for either party, according to these polls. A Reuters Ipsos poll found 43% of registered voters would back the Republican candidate in their district, while 43% would back the Democratic candidate. And that's why I've tried to make the point that this polling cannot be accurate, because it can never be this perfectly close. That's not how qualitative research works. Trump has been asked this morning when he went to place his ballot in the box in Florida whether or not he will tell his supporters not to be violent. And Trump said, I don't have to tell them that there'll be no violence. Of course there will be no violence. Meanwhile, there are shops being boarded up. Washington, D.C., I saw its McDonald's all boarded up, and stores down the street, just literally up from Pennsylvania Avenue. Trump said his supporters are not violent people. He said, these are people that believe in no violence. I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell these great people, he said. He could have told them that before the riot broke out on January 6, when he said that if you don't fight, you won't have a country anymore. I mean, this is the hypocrisy of Donald Trump. And whilst he's claiming that there's no violence, Steve Bannon, who just got out of prison a few days ago, is basically saying the opposite. He said that the now infamous Trump War Room will be revived at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. tonight, and key members of the Trump campaign, including Bannon, as you know, were at that hotel on the 6th of January 2021 as the insurrection unfolded down the street. The War Room has specific goals. At the time, it was to help pressure the then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to certify Biden's election win and send it to the House of Representatives in a contingent election, or failing that, to delay the joint session beyond the 6th of January. And Bannon said, unlike 2020, we will secure Trump's victory this time. Now, you have to read into that. Why is he saying that? I believe that Bannon is advising Trump once again to claim victory early this evening, before all the ballots have been counted, before the final tallies have been done, which could take a few days, that Donald Trump will do what he did in 2020, where he says, okay, stop the count, I'm the winner, because of this red mirage, where they count the Republican votes first by nature of the geography, and then the cities and the metropolis votes get counted second, which invariably tend to be Democrat votes. And so I expect I'm trying to think of a good word, but it's going to be a shit show, whichever way you look at it. And Trump, although he didn't seem to have much fight in him this morning when he went to vote with Melania, they were together. He was obviously, had to make a significant payment to have her show up, tragically. But, he is alone. He is isolated. He is not somebody who has the support of family like Kamala Harris does. Meanwhile, a bipartisan coalition of 51 attorneys general across U.S. states and territories released a statement today urging people to remain peaceful and preemptively condemning any acts of violence related to the results. A peaceful transfer of power is the highest testament to the rule of law, a tradition that stands at the heart of our nation's stability. As Attorneys General, we affirm our commitment to protect communities and uphold the democratic principles we serve, they said. We call upon every American to vote, participate in civil discourse, and above all, respect the integrity of the democratic process, they wrote. Violence has no place in the democratic process. We will exercise our authority to enforce the law against any illegal acts that threaten it. If people haven't learnt their lessons, certainly those who work in law enforcement and on the legal side of this election from last time, then there are some serious flaws in people's thinking. Because Donald Trump will do what he did last time again, but only with more vigor. And as we now know, Steve Bannon is right there, right behind it. A coalition of current and local, state and national bar association presidents published a letter last night ahead of the election, reminding lawyers and the public that the courtroom is not a theatre for unsubstantiated claims. The letter cautions and urges fellow lawyers filing election-related lawsuits this election against presenting false information in their court filings. After the 2020 election, Trump and his team of lawyers filed numerous lawsuits in various states claiming that there was fraud in the election. Those lawsuits were, all of them, pretty much bar one, unsuccessful. And several lawyers connected to the cases were disbarred or had their licenses suspended. And so this letter last night just doubles down on why this election needs to be entirely lawful, because the world is looking on. And the world is seeing America's democracy crumble. And what we really need is for the US to remain that kind of bastion of freedom, to be that great democracy that other countries look up to. And, that concept was severed by Trump. And so we can't allow it to happen again. Now, we know that there is foreign meddling again. The FBI has warned Americans that 2 new fake videos bearing the agency's name and insignia are being misused in promoting false narratives around the election. They put a statement out today saying that they are aware of a fabricated news clip purporting to be a terrorist warning issued by the FBI that urges Americans to vote remotely, citing a high terror threat at polling stations. The second video contains a fabricated FBI press release that claims that 5 prisons in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona rigged inmate voting and colluded with a political party, according to the FBI. Both videos are not authentic, the agency warns, saying that election integrity is among our highest priorities. And of course, we heard from the Office of Director of National Intelligence, as well as the FBI, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, saying that they'd been observing foreign adversaries, particularly Russia, conducting additional influence operations intended to undermine public confidence in the integrity of US elections and stoke divisions among Americans. And they're saying that they expect these activities to intensify throughout today and in the coming weeks, and that foreign influence narratives will focus on swing states. Brad Raffensperger in Georgia has confirmed that non-credible bomb threats were made against 2 polling places in Fulton County, and that they originated from Russia. This is what America is having to deal with. This is what the collapse of American democracy looks like. Remember, election fraud is extremely rare, and aside from Donald Trump himself committing it, it's not something that voters do here in the US. Don't forget to like this video, to subscribe, hit the bell for future notifications, and if you're able to, please join the 5 Minute News channel for exclusive content. It costs just from $3 a month. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me here on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.